What's going on YouTube? Will Morin here, and today I'm talking about DC Rebirth. The Rebirth relaunch, which are two fun words to say together, enters its third week on Wednesday, and I am loving it so far. I'm actually wearing my Captain America shirt ironically because while I'm really loving what DC is doing right now, I'm thinking Marvel's kind of being a turd with their Captain Americas and their other stuff that they're doing. So let's talk about DC first, and then I can shit on Marvel a little bit later. So even if you aren't really interested in the Rebirth tie-ins, the Batman Rebirth, the Flash Rebirth, you owe it to yourself to get the main DC Rebirth story, and here's why. Reading a 90s DC comic now is kind of difficult because you're reading this comic and it's really, really good, but then you just get to these random violence scenes that kind of don't really need to be there. Not that you can't have violence in comics, like I think you should just express art however you want to, but in a lot of those 90s comics, they didn't really flow with the rest of the story. It seemed like they just kind of inserted them in there just to be edgy. DC is kind of both infamous and famous for making some really good comics that are super dark for no explicable reason. Now, I'm not a big fan of Jeff Johns, but I'm told that this is very much his style. He's really inspired by those 90s and 80s writers, but he's got a bit of positivity to his outlook that those writers didn't really have. It's also a really good way to catch people up for anyone who didn't really know anything about the universe before the New 52, because it seems like with this book they're going to be bringing back a lot of the old post-crisis or pre-New 52 stuff, and the reason they kind of in the first place came out with the New 52 was because it was so hard to kind of organize what was going on in that universe, and it seems like so far, Jeff Johns is doing a really good job of giving like this 101 on, okay, this is what we're bringing back and this is what the world used to be like. And that kind of like summarizing of the universe is something you can do through like wiki pages or encyclopedias, but it's really, I think it's a lot better to do it through a comic book because that way not only are these new readers reading comic books and getting into comic books immediately, but they're also getting that 101 all in one, all in the same book, so it kind of saves them time, which I think kind of, the whole time it takes to learn about these universes really alienates new readers, so I think doing this in one big book really kind of helps bring in new readers. Now, for a while, I'd say like the past 5 years or so, Marvel has really dominated comics and live-action movies, obviously, but DC has really been the go-to for animated movies and video games. And it seems like with this new Rebirth reboot, they're also trying to take over comics, and so far they're doing a really good job. Another thing I like about this book is it brings comics back to that kind of photorealistic or nearly photorealistic art style, and I don't have any problem with the more cartoony art style we're seeing in Batgirl and the Marvel books, but it is nice to see that style again. Like, I do hope that DC keeps that style with some of their books, and it seems like looking at Batgirl and Batman Rebirth, they are kind of going for the more hard lines, traditional comic book style. But like I said, while DC's putting a kind of positive spin on a negative world, Marvel's doing the opposite. They're putting a negative spin on their world that they claim is kind of, positive as the fucking marketing and what have you wants you to believe. They're not just changing Iron Man's costume or making Spider-Man super rich. They're making this World War II hero, Mr. Captain America, a literal Nazi. And that brings comics into this kind of realm of reality and negativity that we used to criticize DC for. So it really isn't fair that DC didn't get away with it, but then we're giving Marvel a pass. So I am not going to be giving Marvel a pass. I am not so much boycotting Marvel, but definitely boycotting Captain America and being vocal about how I don't like them or the way that their face looks. Another reason I'm not boycotting Marvel is that it seems like this decision is more on the individual writer than the company as a whole. We saw that with DC when they came out with books like Batgirl, but still had other books that weren't as, lighthearted or maybe weren't as sensitive to certain issues. I also say that because Marvel does have some really great books, not just in regards to, being sensitive to social issues, more being not insensitive to social issues. So they're just very good books without that kind of like misplaced, sort of out of nowhere edginess just to be edgy that we used to see in those DC books that I talked about earlier, that we definitely do see now in Captain America. Seriously, I'm about to burn this shirt. Nah, I probably won't because 4th of July is soon. Well, that's all I have to say about things I think about comics. Let me know what you think about things in both the DC Rebirth and Captain America things. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, I am Will Moore, and thank you for watching.